Welcome to Mother's Revenge, where heartfelt stories touch your soul and may even bring you to tears. You are banned from Thanksgiving, idiot. That is what my mom texted while laughter echoed behind her dishes, clinking, people cheering like it was a victory. I stared at my screen for a long time before replying with one word. Okay. I thought silence would end the noise. 3 days later, their perfect holiday collapsed under the weight of unpaid bills and empty accounts. The same people who laughed had their lights cut, their phones dead, their dinners spoiled, and me. My phone lit up with 92 missed calls. That is when they finally realized who had been keeping the lights on. Not love, not family. Me. My name is Noah Grant, and this is not about revenge. It is about realizing how far someone can bend before they finally break. Before I share my story, I want to know you are here with me. Just say listening in the comments or let me know where you are. I love hearing how far my story reaches. Sometimes even the smallest connection can make a story feel heard. Thank you. And now, here is my story. And if my story touches you, do not forget to subscribe. Every view, every comment, every kind word helps stories like mine reach someone who needs to hear. They are not alone. The Friday before Thanksgiving, the office AC hums above my head in Denver, Colorado, while Spokane, Washington laughter bleeds through my phone speaker. Forks clinking, somebody cheering, my mother's voice riding the noise like a ribbon. And then the text lands. You are banned from Thanksgiving, idiot. I stare at the sentence until it stops burning. I type one word. Okay. I hit send and mute the call. The quiet is surgical. It is not the first time they have set me outside the door. It is just the first time they said it out loud. I drag my chair in, open my financial dashboard, and start where the bleeding is hidden. Mortgage on my parents' house, my card, my email, my SSN on file, power, water, internet, my card, auto pay monthly, dad's prescriptions card on file, family phone plan 4 lines. I use 1, they use 3. All billed to me. I take a breath, then begin the clicks. Suspend the card on the mortgage account. Transfer ownership of power and water back to the home address. Remove my email as primary contact. Revoke digital signatures. Port my number off the family plan to a prepaid line in my name and cut the dependent lines loose. The system throws confirmations like confetti. Your request has been received. Your role has been changed. Your authorization has been removed. And each one lands in a folder I title Operation Cut Loose. At the top of the checklist, I type a note to myself. When money stops, truth speaks. I am not angry. I am steady. I know exactly how the family machine runs because I built its wiring. I kill the speaker and the laughter fades to a memory I do not have to fund. I walk down to the cafeteria and buy a plain lunch black coffee turkey sandwich. Nothing staged for a holiday feed, and I eat it at my desk while a live video from Spokane scrolls past my mother Diane arranging place cards. My Aunt Linda correcting the garnish. My cousin Ethan practicing a toast to family that shows up. I watch with the same focus I give a server log, noting the gloss they apply to the parts of their lives I pay for. Frank, my dad, is in the corner rubbing his sternum like a man who knows the bill will come due and hopes it is not tonight. The group call keeps buzzing, but I do not unmute. This is not a fight. It is a boundary. In my inbox, logs pile up. Account roll changed. Autopay canceled. Signature revoked. I tag everything with timestamps. All of it is legal. All of it mine to do. Mid-afternoon, my bank sends a push alert I have not seen before. Activity notice. A new card is about to activate on a profile ending in my SSN. I flag it, forward it to myself, and park it in a folder labeled Watch. Not now, I tell the part of me that wants to run that down. Now is for cutting clean. By 4, the dashboard is a diagram with arteries sealed and rerouted. The family machine will seek a new host. It will not be me. I step outside for air, let the Colorado sun hit my face, and realize the ache in my chest is not grief. It is relief. Back upstairs, one more ping. A text from my mother. We saved you a plate porch pickup. I can hear the smirk in the period. They believe shame is a leash. They believe I will heal. I put my phone face down. The office goes golden with late light. The hum of climate control steady as my pulse. I shut my laptop slide, the Operation Cut Loose folder into my bag, and head for the elevator. For the first time in years, silence belongs to me. I do not need a chair at their table to be their son. I need a line I will not cross again. But before that text ever arrived, something else had already cracked. 2 months earlier, before any of this Spokane dressed itself up for Ethan's promotion dinner, and I flew in because that is what a good son does. He shows up, he pays quietly, he smiles. The steakhouse was the kind with dimmer switches turned down to expensive. The brand name stamped on the menus and later stamped on my statement, a detail I clocked out of habit. Ethan lifted his glass and said he had hit his quarterly quota, that the team could not have done it without him, and the table clapped like they had rehearsed. I told him congrats meant it, and then asked the smallest, truest question I could manage. When will you pay the 4 months you owe me on the car? The sound dropped out of the room. My Aunt Linda's smile calcified. My mother Diane's eyes sliced a warning across the linen. Tonight is for celebrating, Linda said, sweet as a threat. Do not sour it with accounting. I let it go in the moment because I know the script. I am always the ice water on their parade. After dessert, I excused myself and walked to the parking lot where the air was cheaper and the faces were honest. Ethan followed with that grin he uses when he wants you to forget the math. You are jealous, he said. And for a second, I could see the boy who learned adults would cover for him if he sounded hurt enough. My phone vibrated. An email from my bank confirming last month's family auto pay had been declined because the transfer Ethan promised on Friday never landed. I had quietly covered the difference so lights did not flicker during the party for his success. I watched him talk about office politics and upside potential, and realized how fatigue masquerades as loyalty when you are the one who fixes everything before it breaks. Inside, my mother intercepted me on the way to the restroom. She leaned in close. Perfume and worry braided together. Do not embarrass the family in front of my friends, she whispered. I know about the money. We will handle it later. Later is a room where nothing changes. I nodded, washed my hands, and let the mirror show me a man who keeps receipts no one wants to read. By the time I reached my hotel, Ethan had posted a story. Toxic people ruin good nights, paired with a boomerang of his champagne. Message received. I set my phone on the desk next to the folio they had handed me at check-in and tried to sleep. At 12:13 a.m., my credit app pushed a notice a new account application attempted under my file. Same date, same city, same hours. I was sitting under that steakhouse chandelier. I screenshotted it, filed it, told myself it was a glitch I would clear in the morning. In the morning, I did what I always do. I paid the pharmacy so Dad's refill would not lapse. I covered an internet bill that had temporary in the subject line for the 8th month in a row. I Venmo requested Ethan as a formality and watched the status sit in pending, then disappear when he canceled the request with a waving hand emoji. Back at the airport, I scrolled the transfer history between us, a chorus of all Venmo Friday that never lands, and thought about how a narrative gets written. Ethan is the star. Linda is the cheerleader. My mother is the curator of our perfection. My father is the quiet man in the corner praying for peace, and I am the budget cop who ruins the vibe. On paper, though, the story looks different. The steakhouse brand appears twice on my statement in the same weekend, because I picked up an overflow table no one remembers ordering, because memory is generous to the loudest person in the room. When my plane touched down in Denver, I told myself to forget it. I told myself, this is what family is, a set of costs you do not itemize. But the alert about the attempted account did not vanish, and the emails about temporary charges kept arriving, and the story about toxic people gathered likes, and the feeling that something in me had been quietly grinding down for years refused to be muted. 2 months later, when my mother texted her verdict and the laughter rose around it like confetti, I answered with one word and opened my dashboard. If anyone asks how the crack formed, I do not point to the text. I point to the steakhouse, to the parking lot, to a whisper in a restroom that told me to protect the painting even if the canvas was mold. I point to the email that said a new account was opening in my name while I was clapping for someone else's bonus. And I point to the line I drew on a Friday morning, the one that said, "When money stops, truth speaks." Thanksgiving morning came wrapped in quiet, the kind that settles over an apartment when no one expects you anywhere. I woke to sunlight slanting through the blinds, checked my phone, and found the group chat already full. Diane had sent a picture of the table, the turkey, the wine glasses lined like trophies. Linda had commented perfect as always. Ethan added a selfie with the caption "Family that shows up." I stared at it until the notifications blurred, then opened the link to their live stream. The laughter sounded the same as every year, forced loud enough to drown whatever was underneath. My mother's voice cut through. "We saved you a plate porch pickup." That was her idea of mercy. I closed the stream, the room instantly smaller without their noise, and made ramen on the stove. The steam curled upward, plain and honest. No toasts, no prayers, just the sound of water boiling. At the counter, I opened a clean notebook and wrote the first line across the top. Mortgage. Then utilities, internet, RX, insurance, car, phone plan, grocery emergencies. Next to each, the dollar amount, the date, and what they had called the reason. It looked less like generosity and more like a map of dependency. I started printing records, 36 months of statements, cross-checked receipts, every temporary help that never ended. Each page felt heavier than the last, like holding a version of my life I had not realized I was financing. By noon, I had a pile of paper thick enough to hurt my wrists. I slid them into a binder and typed a title on the cover sheet. The binder. What they do not know is about to save me. The rest of the afternoon I spent drafting a checklist. Cancel this transfer that confirm ownership changes. Each email confirmation went into a folder labeled with a date and signature. My apartment filled with the sound of printers and the smell of instant noodles. I was not angry anymore. I was deliberate. Every click of the mouse, every printed receipt was a heartbeat I could finally hear. Somewhere in Spokane, they were carving turkey and congratulating themselves on unity. In Denver, I was reclaiming oxygen. Around dusk, I left for a drive. No destination, just the hum of the highway. 3 hours later, curiosity or habit, or maybe something weaker, pulled me toward their street. The house glowed through thin snow, warm light behind curtained windows. Laughter leaked out, muffled but recognizable. On the porch, wrapped in foil, sat a plate the size of an apology. A stray cat nosed at the edges, pawing at the aluminum. I did not get out of the car. I just watched until the wind lifted the napkin and scattered it down the steps. Then I drove off, headlights sweeping across the yard that used to be home. When I stopped at a cafe off the interstate, I connected to Wi-Fi and uploaded copies of every document to cloud storage. In the process, I saw an entry in my email logs that did not belong, an electronic authorization from a device labeled home account, time-stamped between the 2 times I had changed my password that week. The document granted limited access to a joint profile. I had not created it. I highlighted the line, printed it, and slid it into the binder under a new section marked Watch. Before closing the laptop, another message blinked into my inbox. Grow up, Noah Grant. Family is not a spreadsheet. No signature, just a blocked number, but the phrasing, the punctuation, Linda. Always the moralist when she was not the one paying. Back in the car, I snapped a photo of the binder cover and sent it to my own email. A reminder, not a threat. Proof that I had started something real. Outside, snow kept falling soft and relentless. Inside, I whispered to the silence. You will see it soon enough. I did not mean revenge. I meant truth. Cold, exact, and finally mine. 2 days later, the phone began to ring before sunrise. The first text from my mother read, "The power bill bounced. Internet is out. Dad's meds expired. What did you do?" The next one came 10 minutes later. "Answer me." I typed 2 words, transferred ownership, and put the phone face down. By 8 Uzra, Ethan was calling, his tone polished to calm. "We are family," he said when I picked up. "Do not make this ugly. Just cover us until next month." I let the silence stretch until he filled it again. "Family takes care of each other," I said quietly. "I have done that for 4 years." The line went dead without goodbye. At noon, a voicemail appeared. My mother's voice sharp, then trembling. "You will regret humiliating us. Your father is ashamed." The words landed with practiced guilt. I waited an hour before calling back. Dad answered, breath-shallow background noise of clicking keys. He started defaulting to softness. I could hear him typing, logging into something. "Who is logged in under my name?" I asked. The keyboard stopped a beat of static. Then he hung up. I turned back to my computer, opened the binder, and began a new section labeled Unauthorized Access. Within minutes, an email pinged from the bank. Confirmation of new home emergency line approved under profile Noah Grant. The address listed was theirs in Spokane. I called the customer service line, gave my identification, and asked who authorized it. The agent hesitated. Electronic signature on file. Diane. For a second, I could not decide what stung more, the forgery or how unsurprising it felt. I thanked her, requested a freeze, and printed the transcript for records. While the printer churned, another notification surfaced from the pharmacy account. Dad's prescription refill had been charged to a supplemental card ending in digits. I recognized the one I had canceled a week earlier when I ended the autopay. The realization hit with the precision of a spreadsheet formula. They had found a way to use me even after I shut the door. I called the pharmacy to verify. They confirmed the charge, said the card must have still been active on file. I told them to remove it permanently. By evening, the phone was shaking with messages. Diane again. "How could you be so cruel? We are your parents." Linda chimed in from an unknown number. "You do not punish family for needing help." Ethan posted on social media a photo of a dark living room captioned, "Some people love control more than kin." I scrolled through it all, my hands steady. This was not cruelty. This was gravity reclaiming balance. I tried calling Dad again. He answered, this time, voice low. No trace of the usual warmth. "Your mother is a mess. She did not mean for it to go this far." I said, "You renewed the meds this morning." "Right." Silence. "So you knew the card was still working?" He sighed. "It is complicated." I almost laughed. "It is not complicated, Dad. It is convenient." The call ended there. The apartment felt smaller that night, the air thick with hums from the printer still cooling. On the desk, the binder sat open to the new section papers spread like evidence in a case I never meant to file. I stared at the words, "Electronic authorization approved by Diane." There was no anger left, just the heavy understanding that silence had never been fear in that house. It had been profit. Outside, rain started against the window, soft at first, then steady. The phone buzzed again on the counter, but I did not look. I already knew what the messages would say, the same refrain looping back. Family takes care of each other. I whispered the answer to the empty room. So do I. Starting now, I take care of myself. I turned off the lights, left the binder open under the desk lamp, its white pages glowing like an X-ray of everything we had become. Family was not dying from neglect. It was dying from accounting. And this time I was letting the balance reach zero. Monday afternoon found me sitting in the corner of a cafe that smelled like roasted beans and printer ink. Lauren Pierce-me, former manager, now a consultant, arrived 10 minutes late, still dressed like she never left the world of briefings and spreadsheets. She used to manage my team before she switched to consulting, the kind of woman who could make a number confess. When she saw the binder on my table, she gave me a look halfway between concern and curiosity. I pushed it toward her. "I need you to look at this." She flipped it open. Pages rustled the weight of 4 years and receipts, invoices, screenshots, and email chains. Her nails clicked on the fake authorization form. "You sign this?" I shook my head. Her brow tightened. "That is identity fraud. Small scale, but still serious. You can file for a civil review." "I do not want to sue my mother," I said. Lauren leaned back, crossing her arms. "You do not have to. You just have to cut, because if you do not, they will open another account before the week is over." Her words landed like a diagnosis. She slid her laptop across and pulled up a series of sites: credit agencies, fraud report form, security alerts. "Start here. Freeze your credit. Send written notice revoking all third-party authorizations. Change every password you have reused since 2019. Then call the fraud line and set up monitoring. Every transaction gets time-stamped." I followed her steps one by one. The hum of the espresso machine covered the keystrokes as she talked me through it. "Do not think of this as revenge," she said. "Think of it as changing the locks on your life." When the fraud alert went through, the screen flashed a notice. "Action incomplete. A joint profile tied to my identifier is still active and cannot be locked." Lauren Pierce frowned. "That is not standard." She ran a trace fingers flying. The address pinged Spokane. The IP belonged to the home router Ethan had installed last year. She turned the laptop toward me. "That is not your mother's doing alone." I stared at the blinking dot on the map, a connection line from my profile to their house pulsing like a vein still feeding blood. Lauren exhaled through her teeth. "You have to document this," you meant. "Every login, every call. From now on, you write your life like an audit report." I printed the confirmation, tucked it into the binder, and thanked her. When I stood, she caught my sleeve. "Noah, you cannot fix people who benefit from your silence. All you can do is stop supplying the power." Back at my apartment, the air felt dense. On my doorstep lay an envelope forwarded from Northwest Energy Co. Inside a notice of balance due $700. The account still carried my name. I dialed the customer service line. The woman who answered sounded nervous. "Mr. Grant, someone already called this morning. Said you requested a 30-day extension." My hand went cold on the phone. "Did they verify with ID?" "They confirmed your mother's birthday." I thanked her, hung up, and stared at the city lights beyond my window. Somewhere out there, they were still using my name like a key they forgot belonged to someone else. I opened the binder and added a new document. Fraudulent contact, Northwest Energy Co. Under it, I wrote the date, time agent name, and statement summary. The habit felt clinical but grounding. When I finished, Lauren texted, "Do not forget to print your fraud alert copy." I did. At the top in bold it read, "Preliminary victim Noah Grant." I stared at the words until my reflection merged with them in the laptop screen. Victim did not fit anymore. I was not trapped in their narrative. I was the only one who remembered what the real numbers looked like. I shut the binder, poured myself a drink, and whispered to the empty room. From now on, every transaction is a choice. The next morning, I woke before dawn. The binder waiting on the desk like a loaded confession. For the first time, I felt the quiet not as absence, but as control. By Wednesday night, the highway stretched endless ahead of me. 20 hours of driving from Denver to Spokane, the kind of silence only broken by tires and thought. Snow began halfway through Washington, coating the world in white indifference. When I turned onto their street, every house glowed except theirs. The Grant place was dark. No porch light, no music, just a shape against the storm. Diane opened the door before I knocked. She wore her old winter coat, the one she had called good enough for errands. Her voice trembled with anger. "What did you do to the bank, Noah?" "They called me twice today. Fixed what was not mine," I said, stepping inside. The air smelled of burnt coffee and cold metal. The kitchen light was off the fridge, humming low. My father sat at the table, pale, staring at a blank TV screen. Ethan appeared from the hallway, laptop under his arm. "You destroyed us," he said. The house payment bounced. "The heat is off. You want to see us homeless?" I placed the binder on the counter and unzipped my jacket. "No, I just stopped paying your bills." My mother's voice cracked. "You sent investigators after us. The police called about fraud." "They called the right people," I said. Dad rubbed his temples. "Noah, please. The mortgage is still under your name. If this house goes under, you will go with it." I did not answer. I opened the binder and set it on the table. The lamplight caught the plastic sleeves, each one reflecting their faces. "Here is the record," I said. "Every transaction, every favor, every signature that was not mine." Ethan stepped closer, jaw tight. "We used your info because Mom said it was fine. It was supposed to be temporary." Diane's silence was confirmation. I looked at her, waiting. Finally, she said, "If you had not blocked the accounts, none of this would have been necessary." "That is what you call this?" I asked. "Necessary." Dad's voice came small. "Your mother just wanted to keep things steady. She said it was a renewal form. I did not think." "No," I cut in. "You chose not to think." For a moment, no one spoke. The wind outside rattled the windows, snow tapping like distant fingers. Ethan folded his arms. "So what now?" "You walk out and let us freeze." I closed the binder gently. "I walk out and let you be responsible adults." Before they could answer, headlights washed across the living room. A knock came 3 sharp raps. When my mother opened the door, 2 officers stood on the porch, their jackets dusted with snow. One held a clipboard. "Mr. and Mrs. Grant," he said. "The bank filed a verification request regarding signatures linked to your mortgage. Mr. and Mrs. Grant, we are here regarding an inquiry from Northcrest Federal Bank. We need to verify some signatures." Diane's breath hitched. My father, Frank's chair scraped back. Ethan looked at me like I had summoned them. I raised my hands. "Not me." The bank flagged the documents. The officers stepped inside, asked calm questions, took notes. No shouting, no drama, just the mechanical unraveling of lies. When they left, the house was quiet again, only the ticking clock filling the space between us. I gathered my things, my mother whispered. "After all we have done for you." I paused at the door. "You mean after all I have paid for you outside the cold bit through my gloves?" Snow had begun to pile on the hood of my car. I sat for a moment before starting the engine, watching the house shrink in the rearview mirror. Then, red and blue light flickered behind me. The officer's car pulling away, their beams flashing across the dark windows like a heartbeat fading out. As I drove, I thought of what Lauren Pierce had said about changing locks. I had not destroyed anything. I had simply turned off the current that kept a lie alive. The road out of Spokane was slick, the city receding into gray. I kept one hand on the wheel, the other on the binder resting in the passenger seat. For the first time in years, it felt light. Somewhere behind me, the house I had grown up in sat dark, stripped of its borrowed electricity. I did not feel triumph, only clarity. I whispered to the night. I did not break the family. I just unplugged the machine that fed on it. Snow thickened the headlights, cut a narrow path forward, and the hum of the tires became the only sound left. Morning light crept through the torn blinds, cutting the cold room into slices of gold and gray. The dining table, once the center of our Thanksgiving rituals, was bare, except for the binder resting in the middle, a ledger laid open like a wound. My mother sat at one end, my father across from her and Ethan between them, shoulders tight as if posture alone could rebuild what they had broken. I took the last chair and let the silence settle. Diane was the first to speak. "Are you turning us into the police?" Her voice carried no tremor, only fatigue. "I did not call anyone," I said. "The bank did. They filed the report themselves." She blinked confusion, crossing her face like a shadow. I flipped open the binder and began sliding pages across the table, statements, payment histories, electronic authorizations, screenshots of transfers. Finally, the forged signature. My mother's name in digital ink. My father reached for his glasses, fingers shaking. "Your mother said it was just renewing the mortgage paperwork." She said nothing. Ethan stared at the floor. I turned another page. "These are the credit accounts tied to my Social Security number. This one was used to pay your credit card, Ethan." He looked up, eyes wide but empty. "It was not supposed to go that far," he said. "It always goes that far when no one says stop," I answered. My mother's breath hitched. "I was scared, Noah. I thought if we lost the house, you took my name to keep your comfort," I said quietly. "That is not fear. That is theft." Ethan leaned forward, anger flickering through embarrassment. "We are family. You act like some stranger pressing charges." "Strangers do not live off my identity," I said. He sank back, arms crossed, his reflection trembling in the tabletop light. I pulled another folder from the binder, the mortgage records. "You said the house was under my name temporarily. Remember? You never told me you added yourself again as co-owner, or that you forged Dad's signature to do it." Diane's jaw tightened. "I had to. They said we needed dual signatures for a renewal. I could not reach you. You did not try." Dad swallowed hard. "I knew about that 6 months ago. Your mother said it was just to stabilize the payments. And you went along, I said, to keep peace. You all did." The silence after that felt heavy enough to shift the air. Outside, wind rattled the bare tree limbs against the siding. Inside, the only sound was paper sliding beneath my hand. "I am not pressing charges," I said finally, "but I am not covering anything else either. The bank's investigation is automatic. Whatever happens from here is not mine to fix." My mother's eyes glistened. "Then what do you want us to do?" I reached into my bag, pulled out a thin folder, and placed it beside the binder. "Every company, every number you need to call, step-by-step instructions to set up your own accounts, the same way I have done it for years." She looked down at the list like it was a foreign language. "From now on," I said, "this house stands on its own." I stood. My father rose with effort, voice low. "You do not have to come back, son. We will manage." I nodded. "That is the idea." At the doorway, I paused once more. Diane's face was pale, streaked with the quiet collapse of certainty. Ethan refused to meet my eyes. "When you said family, I told them you meant the person who pays the bills. When I say family, I mean the person who stops pretending that is love." The morning light brightened as I stepped outside, cutting through the frost on the car windows. The binder sat beside me on the passenger seat, heavy but clean. As I drove away, I did not look back. The house disappeared in the rear-view mirror, a dark outline beneath the winter sky. And for the first time I felt the space between obligation and freedom. 4 months later, the world had gone quiet again. My apartment in Denver hummed with ordinary life, the coffee machine sputtering the hum of the fridge sunlight falling across the counter. My monthly budget sat open on my laptop, 2 neat columns, rent and car insurance. No hidden deductions, no silent withdrawals. For the first time in years, the math balanced. A letter from the law office arrived that morning. The fraud investigation had been closed. The bank had withdrawn the complaint after Diane paid back the outstanding debts and transferred the mortgage into her own name. The document was stamped with closure and relief. Later that week, my father called on video. He looked older but lighter. "Your mother is taking a community finance class," he said, smiling carefully. "She said it is strange paying the power bill herself, but she is doing it." "That is good," I said. "She will figure it out." He hesitated before adding, "She asked if you would visit sometime." "No pressure." I nodded but did not promise. A day later, Ethan sent an email. It was 3 lines long. "You were right. Time for me to learn how to handle my own mess. I am getting there." I did not reply, but I kept it. That night I opened the binder one last time. The pages smelled faintly of paper dust and printer ink. I removed the plastic cover and kept only the first sheet, the one that read, "What they do not know is about to save me." I taped it to the wall above my desk where I could see it each morning. Weeks passed. The city thawed into spring. I worked, slept, cooked simple meals, and the silence that once felt punishing now felt like breath. No one asked for transfers. No one called for favors. The absence of their voices became proof of peace. One late afternoon, I came home to a box sitting on the doorstep. No return address. Inside was a single white ceramic plate, the same kind my mother used to wrap my porch pickup meals in foil. Beneath it, a folded note in her handwriting. "This one belongs at your table." I stood there for a long time, feeling something uncoil quietly inside me. Under the plate was a paid utility bill with her signature Diane Grant neatly written next to the amount. My name had been crossed out from the payer line. For the first time in years, it was not my responsibility. And somehow, that was the closest thing to an apology I could have imagined. I washed the plate, set it on my kitchen table, and brewed a pot of coffee. The light in my apartment was warm, spilling over the counter and the taped sheet on my wall. I read the line again. "What they do not know is about to save me." It was not about secrecy anymore. It was about survival turning into autonomy. I thought about them sometimes not with anger, but with distance. I knew now that love was not measured in invoices or shared last names. It was in accountability and earning your own warmth instead of stealing someone else's. As evening fell, I opened the window and let the city sounds drift in the muffled rush of traffic. A neighbor's radio, a dog barking somewhere far away. The world kept turning, and I felt no urge to chase or fix it. On the table, the plate gleamed under the soft light. Not a symbol of pity this time, but of understanding. A place reclaimed, not given. I sat down, poured my coffee, and smiled at the quiet. Last year they told me I was banned from Thanksgiving. This year I invited myself, and for the first time I did not need anyone's permission to take a seat. When I look back, I realize this story was never about money. It was about worth, the kind you cannot measure in balances or bills. I spent years thinking love meant covering someone else's mistakes, that silence was loyalty, that exhaustion was duty. But the truth is simpler and sharper. Love without respect is not love, it is maintenance. The moment I stopped financing their comfort, I learned what family really costs and what peace is truly worth. Cutting them off did not make me cold. It made me honest. It taught me that boundaries are not walls, they are doors. You finally learn how to lock from the inside. If you have ever been made to feel like your value depended on what you could provide, money time obedience. Please hear me. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to let people face the weight of their own choices. The world will not end. Sometimes it finally begins. Maybe you have been the quiet one, too. The fixer, the provider, the invisible backbone of a family that only notices when you break. I know what that feels like. And if this story reached you tonight, know that you are not alone. Tell me where you are watching from, or just type here in the comments, so I know you are listening. Every story like this finds someone who needs it, and maybe that someone is you or someone waiting to hear they can take back their peace too. And if my words resonated, please subscribe, share, or even just leave a kind message. This channel is not about revenge. It is about reclamation. The quiet, steady act of choosing yourself after years of being someone else's safety net. Thank you for listening, truly.